Now, you've probably seen this. I haven't really been pointing out the footages each time I turn that knob, but I could be doing that. And let's talk about footages. Footages are a means of measuring octaves that comes from pipe organs. And in the history of synthesizers, there really wasn't a means of measuring octaves. There wasn't a word for it. And so basically, synthesizer creators adopted the one used for pipe organs, where these footages defined octaves based on how many feet made a difference in an octave. So that's why we have these weird numbers that indicate octaves on synthesizers. And so, like, when you get to 2 feet, we're really talking about 2 feet of pipe to indicate a really high octave. And so that's really all that's going on there. All right, now we'll go back to this waveform, which people have at times seem to have a struggle as to what to call it, because it's not one of our traditional waveforms, which is sad because, I mean, let's face it, this was, for all intents and purposes, the first non-modular portable synthesizer product. And, so many things were taken from this architecture. I mean, we're still using this exact same architecture. Why the sawtooth triangular wave did not make the jump, I don't know. Maybe people weren't that excited by it, but I am. It is a really pleasing waveform, and that's basically what it is. This waveform is a combination between a sawtooth and a triangle, and I found some documentation at some point while working at the Bob Moog Foundation where it was described in documentation as sawtooth-triangular. So that is the name of that, if you have curiosity. Let's hear it. And that's it's beautiful because it has this big low end that is really warm, and then it has just enough harmonics on the top to give you not only some brightness but also something to be filtered. So it's kind of a cool wave. It's just got this big low end, and it sounds really good. And it's sad because, like, it has a lot of applications, and it always sounds good when you use it in a song. And I often multi-track the Minimoog and use it, and from a polyphonic standpoint, it sounds fantastic. So that's a great sawtooth triangular sound. Let's move on to the square wave. On the Minimoog, we have a square wave and then 2 varieties of pulse. And so this is the full square wave, which is theoretically the 50% duty cycle, where it's as up as it is down, which makes a square shape. And let's have a listen. Excuse me. Yeah, that's key contact needing to be cleaned. It's such a big, powerful square wave. You can hear a little bit of static in there, and that is not the waveform. It's probably some dirt in a knob. Keep in mind that with the Minimoog, anything dealing with the sound wave itself, like the oscillator section or the filter section, the sound is actually going through these pots. And so you have a very good chance of, if there's dirt in the pot, it's going to cause distortion in the sound, which is a setback for that. But also, when you control the sound with the pot, it gives you more control. It's a more pleasing experience, which is why presets became a sad thing, because they started, the pots became a digital thing that were controlling the analog functions. And that was sad, because then your sound's not going through the knobs. And for all we know, the Minimoog's great sound could be the pots. The pots could have some aspect that contributes to the overall Minimoog sound. Anyway, so I'm sorry for any of those distortions or, anything dealing with the antiquated nature of this synthesizer, but that's why we have analog. That's why we want it. It sounds good, and it has these aspects. Sometimes these aspects can be pleasing in themselves. Okay, let us now listen to... Let us now listen to the first pulse. It's like a less hollow square, a more sawtoothy square. And very nice as a pulse. And now let us listen to the second pulse, which is much more nasal. And that is our second pulse, which is kind of the guaranteed clav sound on your Minimoog, or maybe bassoon or oboe or something. But we have basically covered the basics of the Minimoog oscillators found on the Moog Minimoog.